What do you say, everybody? Welcome to the Bama Insider YouTube channel on a Sunday night. We're taking your calls at 205-850-0883. I'm Mick Gillispie, and it really is a pleasure to talk to you tonight as we get into some topics that concern the Alabama Crimson Tide. But let me tell you about Bama Insider. We're the Alabama Rivals site. We cover recruiting. We cover Alabama football like nobody else. We're going to tell you about the Ty Simpsons when they're making the big decision. We got Andrew Bone. He's the best in the business when it comes to recruiting. We also got Kyle Henderson. He's our managing editor. And Kyle, Tony Sukas, our beat writer, constantly pounding the pavement to figure out what's going on with Alabama and the Crimson Tide. We talk a lot of football, but right now we're talking a lot of basketball. That's because the Alabama Crimson Tide basketball team, and I heard my man Lawrence Holmes say this morning on national radio, alumnus of Alabama, for any of you in the Chicago area, he's on the score up there. Alabama's a basketball school now. Hey, look, they won the SEC. They're 16-2. They're heading into the tournament, and they got a chance to maybe be a number one seed for the first time in program history in the NCAA tournament. So we're taking your calls, 205-850-0883. You want to talk basketball? Got some football too. How about it's been, over a week now, but Ty Simpson committing to Alabama, 4-star quarterback, going to be a 5-star quarterback. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country out of Martin, Tennessee. Dad's a coach. Looked like he was going to go with Jeremy Pruitt to Tennessee, but the Volunteers self-imposed sanctions, new coach. He's coming to play football at the Capstone. So it's another huge get for Alabama, building off of a number one recruiting class, a national championship, and now they have more momentum. And when you get these big 5-star quarterbacks, obviously those guys go out, they recruit amongst their friends, they get the elite players. Alabama's done this before, but they haven't been a quarterback school. So maybe we talk about tonight the best quarterback in the history of Alabama if we don't talk basketball. Joe Namath, is he the best ever? Broadway Joe? He was good. He was great, right? Played for the Bear. Bart Starr was there before Bear Bryant. Won the first 2 Super Bowls. Best quarterback maybe in the history of his era of football. You can say what you want to say about Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, but Bart Starr won championships. Birmingham native. As a matter of fact, he was my first interview first big interview when I was in college at Alabama on the student radio station. He called in for my football pregame show. It was really awesome. And he signed my son's first football my son got signed by Bart Starr. Love the guy. Hey, maybe he's the greatest of all times, right? Didn't have a great run at Alabama. His team stunk, though. He was on the teams that led into Bear Bryant. So going way, way back. How about Snake Stabler? Worked with Snake at the Crimson Tide Sports Network, although I never got on the air with him. Love the guy, though. Fun, great NFL player, great college player, a champion, both levels. One of the greats of all time in the NFL. And then it kind of, died out. Richard Todd. there were some guys that played quarterback. Rutherford played some quarterback for Alabama. I think that's his name. Back in the early, maybe the 80s and early 90s. Anyway, didn't Jeff Hostetler play at Alabama? I don't even know. But look, now all of a sudden Alabama's a quarterback school. Now all of a sudden you look, and Alabama is great. I see Brandon Grammer says he has taco neck, probably from trying to catch passes from this all of a sudden quarterback crazy Alabama school that has Jalen Hurts and Tua in the NFL right now as starting quarterbacks, and Mac Jones going to be drafted in the top 10, and his teammates are being asked, some of the receivers that played with him, Smitty and Waddle, both asked, who's better, Tua or Mac? And they said Mac. I couldn't believe it, but you got to love the honesty. And maybe they're just helping him with his draft status, or maybe they did like him better. The way that he was able to feather the ball in there. So those are topics that we're going to get into. Who's the greatest quarterback of all time? Where's Mac Jones going in the draft? We've kind of hit that. But we're taking your calls as well at 205-850-0883. And I'm going to start with basketball. because I almost feel like for those of you that are kind of, new to Crimson Tide basketball, that you're saying to yourself now, Mick, this is normal, right? I mean, for Alabama to make the tournament and roll in like this. No, it once was. It really was. There was a time when it looked like Alabama basketball was going to be one of the national programs, because when that guy was head coach, it was. That's Wimp Sanderson. I mean, you go on Getty Images and try to find a picture of him coaching. They don't even have him up there. But he's the greatest Alabama basketball coach of all time. I don't even think there's a second. I mean, like, really, it's hard to find. Maybe Mark Gottfried's second, CM Newton. But when Wimp Sanderson was head coach at Alabama, this program got on the roll that Nate Oats is really going to try to emulate. And he's the only guy that's been able to have real, true, sustained success. I mean, going back to the history of Alabama basketball, 74, 75, Alabama made the tournament. They didn't seed it back then, and they lost in the first round to Arizona. 75, 76, they made the tournament. They beat North Carolina, a nice win, and then lost to Indiana. I'm sure that was with Bobby Knight in the round of 32, right? And then it was Wimp Sanderson. And I mean, every single year, this team was in the tournament, 81, 82, 82, 83, 83, 84. I mean, Alabama got on a roll that Wimp kind of, had some trouble. And I think, and who knows what the truth is on those stories, but got fired from the job or resigned or whatever happened. And that was it. I mean, Mark Gottfried came in and he had that, an SEC championship in 2002 and got Alabama to the Elite Eight. And as good as Wimp Sanderson was, never really had a good run in the tournament. I mean, Alabama's never been to the Final Four, but it was Mark Gottfried's team in 2003, 2004, an 8 seed, by the way, that got hot. 8-8 SEC record. We weren't even sure if they were going to make the tournament, right? Southern Illinois beat them. Number 1 Stanford beat them. Syracuse beat them and then lost to UConn. And I think UConn won the national championship that year. So that was a 20-13 Alabama team, 03-04, an 8 seed. Alabama's never been a number 1 seed. And if they win the SEC tournament this year, they have a real good shot at being a number 1 seed, but they're not playing. I don't feel like they're playing their best basketball right now as we throw a Mark Gottfried picture up there. And what Alabama's going to have to do is get into this tournament and try to find momentum. But when you're a number 1 seed, you just get better matchups all the way through. Twice in program history, Alabama has been a number 2 seed. So it would be unprecedented as we take your calls at 205-850-0883 for the Crimson Tide to be numero uno seed. And the times that they've been a number 2 seed, the last time it happened was the 01-02 season. That was a conference championship, right? That was the last time until this year that they won the SEC. Great overall record, 27-8. They were 12-4 in the SEC. They beat Florida Atlantic in the first round and then lost to Kent State and didn't even play a good game. 71-58, they lost. That was it. And off they went. That was just, and then after that, that experience there, and then making the tournament 02-03 as a 10 seed, they lost to Indiana. Indiana in that tournament, coming off of a national championship loss to Maryland, right? Well, in 03-04, as an 8 seed, Bama got to the Elite Eight, and that was really the best run that they ever had. Gottfried's 04-05 team was a 5 seed. 05-06 made the tournament at 10, and then the last decade, Bama's made it twice. So we were talking about this last week. And people are like, well, Avery Johnson made it. This team, 2017-18, you got a couple of the guys on the team right now that were on that team, but they really weren't even stars on that team. So, there's not a lot of experience with this club, what they can do getting into the tournament. So that's, as we go to the phone lines, that's what we're kind of looking at right now. But we'll hear from you guys and see what you want to talk about. And pretty excited about being able to put Alabama on my bracket. Who's this and where you calling from?
Hunter from Alabama.
What's up, man?
How you doing?
Good.
Good. I was just kind of hearing what you're saying there. I agree with a lot of what you said there. But I think this run that this team this year is having wouldn't have happened without Avery Johnson. And in my opinion, he was prematurely fired. I don't think that was warranted for him to be let go. I like Oats and what he's been able to do this year. But I just thought that was kind of premature.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's hard to argue with Coach Avery Johnson and kind of where his success has been because a lot of these guys that are starring on the team right now, he brought in. You lost Lewis as a lottery pick in the draft last season. You got Jones, who's, one of the best players in the country. Petty's had a good year. So, but you can't take it away from Nate Oats either. I mean, like he's the guy that has gotten Alabama to the point where they won the SEC, and if they win the SEC tournament, I think the chips are going to fall where they'll be a number one seed. That would be great. Now they still have to win some basketball games to get there. But you know what? I mean, like when Avery Johnson got fired, it surprised me, to be honest with you. I didn't see it coming. But it's hard to argue with the success that Nate Oats has had.
Oh, no, I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm just saying that the foundation wouldn't have been laid for some of the success that Oats having if it wouldn't have been for what Avery did as far as recruiting and things like that. I'm not taking anything away from the guy because I like Oats, so I think he's going to be a great coach for us. I was surprised too. So that was a shocker for both of us, I guess.
Yeah, but the exciting part about it is you got Nate Oats recruiting at a high level. He's got J.D. Davidson, one of the best players in the country, coming into the program. And what we've seen with David Hobbs, who was head coach after Wimp, Mark Gottfried got on a little bit of a roll. And then, after the Elite Eight, it just seemed to kind of sink fast. And after that, I mean, Anthony Grant wasn't any good. Avery Johnson, I thought he was doing a pretty good job. And then Nate Oats, I mean, it's hard to argue that Nate Oats isn't like next level coaching. I mean, the fact that Alabama's had to go out, re-sign this guy, give him the big contract, and the only way that they're going to keep him is by, I think, upgrading the facilities, give him the money. This guy he's just a different animal than the other coaches, and I always liked Mark Gottfried when I was, at Alabama. I thought that he was definitely a step up from David Hobbs and had some success. I didn't get a chance to see Wimp coach. I mean, he was before my time, but Anthony Grant was awful, not bad with the media, bad off the court, a good coach. The players liked him, and that was probably about it with him. Avery Johnson, good guy. Players liked him. I've heard people say maybe he played his son too much, who wasn't that good, and could have lost some guys on the team with that. I don't know. I just always liked him. And he left a foundation, and this guy's come in, and, I mean, this right now could be the best season Alabama's ever had. If they win the SEC tournament and they go in as the number one seed, you got to say it's the best Alabama basketball team going into the NCAA that's ever been.
Yeah, we're just playing real sloppy right now. The last few games have been kind of sloppy. I've been kind of a little disappointed in the way that we played. I've grown up playing basketball. My granddaddy played at the University of Tennessee, so I've been around the game my whole life, and basketball's been my main sport, growing up. And so just seeing the way that we've been playing and seeing some of the things from from somebody who's played the game and somebody who's been around the game for a long time. We just played really sloppy the last few games, and we're not going to get very far in the tournament if we keep playing this sloppy.
I think that's the best point that you could make, because I agree with you 110%. I don't think this team's good enough not to play great basketball to make a run. They've been mediocre out of conference, right? 5 wins, 4 losses. That's about 500. The SEC does not have many good teams. They have a few. LSU's decent. Bama's blown them out. Arkansas is one of the hottest teams in the country. Bama had a game there and lost. The officiating stunk for Alabama that game, but they lost the game. They didn't make the shots. The Georgia game, Bama fell behind, and then, all of a sudden, they have the ability to score a lot of points quickly. They did that. They won the game. I don't know how interested they are playing Georgia either. I don't know how excited they are about playing Georgia when they're looking at the SEC and they're looking at the NCAA tournament. The problem is that I don't know that they're good enough to turn it off and turn it back on. And Nate Oats talked about that in his post-game press conference, which you can watch on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. And he's basically saying, look, if we play like we did in the first half in Nashville, things aren't going to go well for us. We're going to have to play with the intensity and not turn the ball over like we did. And he said, even with 22 turnovers, when Alabama didn't turn it over, they did good things with the basketball. They scored a lot of points. But I'm very curious about what this team's going to be able to do in the tournament. I could see them losing in the first round. I could see them getting to the Final Four. Really, I think it is a flip of the coin. If they go into that tournament, they find a spot in one of those gyms in Indiana and Indianapolis, and they get hot, they're going to be pretty tough to beat. But if they go in there and play like they have a few of these games that they've been able to win, but have looked bad against teams that are hungry and good, the tournament might not last too long for Alabama.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that Missouri game that we lost to Missouri in, I think that game in particular kind of set the course for how we've been playing here lately. That game in particular we played particularly sloppy, and just got to play with more consistency, and finish at the basket. We just the last few games we just hadn't finished very well underneath the basket. And we've got to do a better job of that. And like you said, I think I can see us getting knocked out the first game of the NCAA tournament, and I can see us making it all the way to the championship game.
Yeah.
If they play right.
Yeah.
This team, they are unstoppable when they're hot. When they're shooting threes and they're hot, they're unbeatable.
That's right. They play an NBA style, and when they hit, all of a sudden it's contagious, like batting in baseball. One guy starts hitting, everyone just seems to feed off of that, and that's the good news. And they play great defense. They're like the third best defensive team in the country. Rebounding could be better. They can't turn the ball over, but there's a fine line between this team. They're not going to be able to play poorly and win. They're going to have to play good basketball. Anything else? I've got some other calls lined up, but I do appreciate you calling. Anything else before I go to the next call?
No, man. Thank you. I appreciate you taking my call.
Hey, anytime. Roll Tide. Let's do it again next time.
All
right, let's go back to the phones again as we talk Alabama. Kind of talking basketball, but we'll go anywhere you guys want to go. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Josh. I'm calling from Denver, Colorado.
Hey, what's up, man?
I'm from Alabama, but I live out here now. But I've been paying attention. When's the last time somebody won the national championship in football and basketball?
That would be the Florida Gators. They did it with Tim Tebow and the crew, and then Noah, forget the guy's last name. The basketball team won back-to-back championships.
Right. Oh, yeah, that was with the kid that went to the Bulls.
Yeah.
Joaquin Noah or whatever.
Yeah, Joaquin Noah. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, and so I was thinking about this. The way the tournament is set up this year, you've got, how they don't travel like they do in past years. It's like you go to one location for a long time, is the way I understand it. And I think that favors, a streaky shooting team to stay in one place and not have to travel back and forth, and I just think that really gives us an edge.
Look, if Alabama gets hot, then you're right. I mean, like that could be the break that this team needs. I love the fact that it's got a lot of seniors on it, guys who have been around. I worry about the first game. I just feel like the first game is always a trap game when you don't have a lot of tournament experience. It's a different animal when you get in these tournaments. And maybe the SEC tournament that Alabama's about to play, although they get a double bye, but maybe just being there and kind of being around that's going to help out. But I agree. And the fact that, there's not going to be a lot of fans in there. If this team can find its stroke with Petty and Jones and can just get going that first game, a lot can happen good for Alabama basketball. The other thing is that Gonzaga's beatable. I know they haven't lost this year. They play a terrible schedule. I mean, that conference is not good. They're just not. And the SEC, I will say this, isn't that good either, but it's better than the Gonzaga's conference. I mean, there's no Arkansas in there. There's no Missouri in there. That you're not talking about the caliber of teams and athletes that you play in. Tennessee's not in there, like game in and game out. And I think Gonzaga's beatable. Look, it would take a great effort to beat them. Michigan's really good. I got a feeling that the Big Ten with Illinois and Ohio State, I think that's a pretty good conference. I just, I pay close attention to that. And,
I think it's the best conference so far.
Yeah, and so those teams are tested because the best of the best are playing there in their tournament and, in their conference. And, just the way that life's been right now with COVID, I would think they're pretty good, but they're going to beat each other in that Big Ten tournament. And if Alabama wins their tournament, they win out with a 16-2 regular season. The way that they've played consistently,
it's the number 1 seed.
Yeah, they could be a number 1 seed, right? I just think I could see it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you're taking my call. Roll Tide.
Hey, Roll Tide, man. Gotta love Colorado. Go out there, go skiing. I've always enjoyed going out there. Who's this and where you calling from?
Devon, how you doing, DC?
Oh, hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Shit, how you been, man?
Been good. I'm excited about this. Let me say this, man. This is the time of year where we're not supposed to have a lot going on as Alabama fans. We're kind of supposed to be sitting
football
back.
Supposed to be the end.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like we're kind of like, okay, we're getting ready for this 8A game that we haven't even started practicing yet. The news story is supposed to be that Jalen Waddle said that he liked Mac Jones better than Tua. And look, that's interesting. We could talk about that. But at the same time, man, Bama, 16-2, it's the tied for the most wins they've ever had in conference. They're rolling into the SEC. And if they win the tournament, and you got to take it game by game, but if they win the tournament, and I think that the first round game, I'm not worried as much about Mississippi State, but Kentucky has horses, even though they have had a bad year. I could see them winning the SEC tournament and getting in to the NCAA just like even as bad as they've been because they got all those 5-star guys and 4-star talent guys. But we're talking basketball, man. So what do you think?
Well, to piggyback what you said about the Waddle choosing Mac over Tua, him and Devontae Smith did that because as much as we love Tua never took what the defense was giving him. He wanted more. He was greedy. That's why he got hurt a lot. Holding the ball too long, trying to make the big splash plays, and that's fine. Those came easy, but when they didn't, that's when he got hurt. Mac Jones was very quick to realize, okay, the big play isn't there. Let's dump it off and get what we can, and the big play will come later. And I think that played a part into guys wanting the football. He got them the ball every which way. It wasn't just getting them the ball on the deep ball or the route that was called. If it wasn't there, Mac Jones dumped it off. He got it into the playmaker's hands at all costs. I think that any receiver being a diva position wants the football. Am I right?
Yeah, I agree.
You know, when you got a guy like Tua who's looking for the big play and that isn't there, he tends to hold the ball too long.
Right.
So the ball doesn't get out of his hands. You know, with these guys like Waddle and Devontae, they can make a guy miss and go 80 yards. They just want to get in their hands. See, and that's where Mac Jones, standing over there watching Jalen Hurts and Tua for 3 years, he picked that up. Okay, you know what? When I do get my chance, I'm going to make sure that the ball is out of my hands and I run the offense exactly the way the offense is called. I'm not as athletic and I'm not as gifted as those guys are with my feet, so I can't be off script like they can. They can go off schedule and still make plays. Mac Jones wasn't really built like that, even though he was manipulating the pocket with his feet, sort of like Tom Brady and some of the Drew Brees guys that you see that can't move as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was never going to wow you with his speed or his quickness, so he had to do it with his mind, his arm angles, his feet, his pocket stuff, things he did pre-snap and post-snap that those other two guys didn't do a lot of. You saw it in him. He played the position like a quarterback. The other two played it like an athlete more so than a quarterback. And that's why he didn't get hit as much. And that's why he was standing pretty at the end of that championship game. He barely got touched last year. Great offensive line, too.
I agree,
You know, the
man.
line played a big deal in it. But he got rid of the football. When Sarkisian called a play, the ball got out of his hands.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
I was surprised
You know?
by that, too, because I was – you know, like I wasn't happy when Talia transferred. I thought Talia would be the quarterback of the team, and honestly, if he stayed, he'd be the quarterback of the team right now. But he left. He left. You know, I love Tua. I love the excitement that he brought. Just a great guy. You know, whatever. But when Max stepped in, you know, it took me a while to warm up to him, and I saw that game against Ole Miss, and I'm like, man, he's got a lot of poise, man. I mean, like, and
moxie, man. He got a lot of moxie.
Yeah, like just
moxie.
kind of. He did not have that last year, but he had it this year. So he definitely grew into the job. And you're right. Tua used to drive me nuts. Like he's barely able to walk going into the
and he's holding on to the football.
Game, and he's
Get rid of the
around
football,
in circles.
man.
Yeah, Mac reminded me of Tom Brady. He would just throw the ball down and get to the next play. Look, if it wasn't there, he didn't take the hits.
Yeah.
And look, his teammates right now are trying to get him paid because, you know, they're saying Tua's great and they're saying, hey, look, we like this guy better. Waddle's the second guy. He just said it this week. Smitty said it first. They're saying it. I know they believe it, but they're saying it also because they're trying to help him get paid. And I mean, like this stuff goes a long way.
Well, let me ask you a question before I get to basketball. Do you believe with Tua as our quarterback, the 1 year he was our quarterback, the whole year he got hurt, we got to the championship, we got embarrassed. The other year he came in at the end and saved us. He never took us from the beginning to the end to a title. Mac Jones did.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
Mac Jones did it in a year where things were very complicated too, where you might not have your whole roster from week to week.
Right.
He did it in a year where things were, and I look at that. No, he's not as good as Tua talent-wise.
Right.
But if I'm drafting a quarterback and I have them two in the room, I'm probably going to take Tua because I don't want to lose my job because I'm probably going to get fired if the GM doesn't take Tua over Mac. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be hard for me not to look at Mac and go, wow, I maybe should have taken him. He showed me some things this year that you can't teach from that position, from the mental aspect, from the clock in your head, those things you can't teach. Either a guy has that or they don't have that.
Right.
You can't teach that. You can speed the scheme up, get the ball out of his hands quicker, but if it's in his brain or his mind that he has to make a play downfield and that's what he's always done, trying to get a guy like Tua that has done that his whole life to all of a sudden not do that, that's hard.
Yeah, right.
That's very hard.
It's funny, though.
He's had it in – go ahead.
No, I agree, but it's funny how people have forgotten how good Tua was. And I'm not just saying
Tua
us.
was great.
I mean, like in the NFL, like you keep hearing his name come up in trade rumors and everything else. Like, yeah, he didn't have a great first year in the NFL. It's amazing that he even played this year in the NFL. I mean, let's just remember how bad that injury was that he had. and everything that went into it. He's probably been a little bit tentative. I'm putting my money on Tua to be a great quarterback in the NFL, and that at the NFL you just don't pop in at the quarterback spot and figure it out right away. It takes a while. Miami's got some really good picks. They've got some great players around them, and if they trade him somewhere else, that team's going to be getting a really good player. And the good thing that that you'll find out is that wherever he goes, if he gets traded, he's coming. There's some picks coming with him, so they'll be able to. Get him some players to help out. I mean, I would watch that Miami team. They didn't have a lot of great skill players. They need a running back. They need some receivers. They could block a little bit on the offensive line, but then some games they didn't. He's still figuring it out.
There wasn't a lot of talent on that roster.
Right. Look, Mac Jones had the best offensive line Alabama's ever had. And look.
Well, that's why I said coach
better.
should have been coach of the year. Brian Flores got 10 wins out of that group. I don't know how he did it.
Yeah,
I don't know how he did that. 10 wins with that group. No way in hell I would expect him to get 10 wins out of that group. Nobody. They were fighting for their playoff lives until the last week of the season.
That's right.
They were right there.
That's right.
They were right there. With that roster, they were playoff bound until they just completely fell on their face at Buffalo, which is not a bad loss. Buffalo was dynamite. They were a few quarters from the Super Bowl themselves.
Yeah.
So, like I said, Tua was great. We've been blessed. Our quarterback room at one time had Tua, Jalen, and Mac Jones. All of them helped us win a championship while they were there.
Right.
I can't get upset about that. And our defenses outside of 2016 weren't the best defenses. Those guys were there. Our defenses weren't, with the way football has changed, our defenses are still good. They're not dominant. No defense is dominant anymore. It's hard to be dominant with the way you play football.
Yeah.
There's no way. If you can hold a team to 21 points and 400 yards, that's a good week now. You know what I mean? It is. It's a good week.
Yeah, I was talking
back in the day, 400 yards was sounding like you got shredded, but giving up 400 yards in a spread offensive game now, that's nothing.
Yeah.
That's nothing because you're giving up. Every possession a team is bound to get the way football is played with a good offense. They're going to get 40, 50 yards, you would think, on any possession just because of the way football is played. So 7, 8 possessions a game, if they get that, that's 400 yards right there.
Yeah, right.
So you're not like, it's crazy.
No, I'm with you.
On the basketball.
Well, hold on. Let me say one more thing. Just hold that. I'm talking to Mike Johnson. He's, one of the captains on the 09 team and a good friend and, just a great football player, offensive line. And he was asked on a show because he was the captain of the other Nick Saban undefeated national championship team. Who wins if these two teams play? And he says, well, what kind of football are we playing? We playing the kind of football we played in 09, where you go across the middle and somebody's taking your head off? Or are we playing this football that they play now, where it's like touch football, like you can't hit, and I'm not saying I don't like. I'm not even picking what type of football I like or don't like. I'm just saying he makes a great point. The way that this team is, you're not going to be able to be Devontae Smith and catch the ball going across the middle and survive. Waddle too, they're going to kill you. I mean, like it's a lot. If the game's opened up. And, offense, it's an offensive driven game. They don't want the head-to-head contact. They like the scoring. They like the offense. It's just different. But, at the same time, it's a lot of fun to watch both of them. I like the defense. I like those championships. And I like this championship too. So 09 was special just because it was the first one. But this year was pretty awesome. All right, let's switch to basketball.
Okay. Let's talk about that Roll Tide and that Nate Oats guy doing a hell of a job. J.D. Davidson's coming. Yes, indeed. He's coming. Yes, indeed. I think in basketball, I just think that team, like I said, I told you when I was on here before we talked, I said when Javon Quinterly plays well, that team is hard to beat, So what'd you think of Javon Quinterly lately?
No, I agree. I mean, look, he was bad in the first half and great in the second half against Georgia. And I mean, great. Like he just did so many things well. I love the fact that he's your guy coming off the bench. I love that. I think to win a championship, it doesn't really matter who the first 5 guys are. It's the guys that are going to come in there and take advantage of the minutes that they're supposed to play. Petty, when Petty hits, Alabama is really, really tough. Right. And Jones has been consistent, but Quinterly is going to be around for a while too. So you want him to kind of be a star on this team.
I get it. And I think, as I stated before, Herb Jones is the guy that's going to do all the glue stuff. He's going to play defense. He's going to set guys up. He's going to score. He's not going to come out and get you 25. That's not who he is. So the Petties and the Quinterleys and the Shackleford. Is it Shackleford? Is it?
Yeah.
Is it Shackleford's his name? Last name? I think it's Shackleford.
Shackleford, yeah.
You know, those are the guys that got to make shots. If Alabama's making shots, they're going to be hard to beat. Now the key is making shots. I think they kind of hit the wall a little with the SEC. They kind of were running through it. It was kind of really easy for them when they were blowing everyone out. And then they ran into that Missouri team where they got down by like 25, cut it to 1, and then they had a chance to win and got the shot blocked. I think just overall, they just have not, ever since they were winning so easily. And when you're not used to winning, it's hard to keep that edge. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
They're not used to that.
Right.
So the edge that they should have had, they may not have had because it isn't something that they're used to doing. They're just not used to winning like this in the basketball world. They're a football program.
That's
we
right.
know that. They play football.
Look,
that's what they do best.
The thing I love about Nate Oats, and I told you guys, like, you know, I was an Avery Johnson fan. I mean, like, I probably wouldn't have fired him if I was athletic director, knowing what I know from the outside. And then looking back at it now, I mean, like, the guy they got's great. So it's not like it turned out to be the right move, but I probably wouldn't have made that. I liked him. I thought he was doing a good job recruiting. He's just a positive energy coach. But at the same time, you know, Alabama raised the bar of expectations for the basketball program. And, you know, and Nate Oats, if he isn't able to continue the success, then they'd find somebody else. But the thing that Nate Oats brought in is he's cut nets down. You know, when he was at Buffalo, you know, he was winning their tournament.
He was winning MAC championships all the time.
Yeah, right.
MAC championships all the time.
All the time. Man. He's cutting nets down. We're not cutting nets down in Tuscaloosa a lot. We're not cutting net. We haven't cut nets down since what? They went to the Elite Eight. I mean, this is like they've made the tournament. They don't even make the tournament that much. Like they made it like 3 years ago, and they made it one time when Anthony Grant was there. Like, no consistency with postseason play. Nate Oats comes in, and this guy's, you know, bringing in all this like this championship success. I mean, his office is the one that has all the torn up nets, and I got to give him credit. I mean, it's been a lot of fun to kind of see this program, thanks to, you know, maybe it was the right time and he was the right guy. And maybe the fact that you can't take away what Avery Johnson did too, like Hunter said from Montgomery. I mean, like, he's right. Like sometimes, you know, Shula did a nice job of leaving football in a spot where Nick Saban could take over and get him to the next level. Right. Shula was never going to be that guy, but you know what, when he got there, it was a dumpster fire. Right. And Avery Johnson, I feel like the same thing. The basketball program under Anthony Grant was horrible. And Anthony Grant's actually doing a really good job right now at Dayton. But when he was at Alabama, he wasn't good. And, you know, and it was just a bad situation. Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at Alabama, and it's like, hey, this team's they got a chance to be a number one. They could be a number 2 seed for the third time in program history, right? So I think if they win one and lose one in the tournament, I think that happens. They'll be a number 2 seed, you know, possibly a number 3, but still, it's going to be one of the best seedings that they've ever had. And then, you know, you talked about it. Now they got one of the best players in Davidson, a 5-star coming in, with Kool-Aid and a couple guys coming that are playing football, awesome athletes. And, you know, you look at the recruiting. You look at the recruiting class, and this is how you build a team that is able to find continued success. You know, Wimp Sanderson proved in the 80s that you can win at Alabama. He did it. But that's the only guy that's really been able to maintain that type of success where he was in the tournament every year.
Yeah, he did a hell of a job. Didn't he have Robert Ory on that team down there?
Yep, he sure did.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, Bob Ory down there. So when you look at it, this team is an Elite Eight roster, in my opinion. When you look at what they're capable of doing, they're Elite Eight team. Now, you mentioned Kentucky can win the SEC. Yeah, but Kentucky just isn't that good. I look at them, the 5 stars, that's hoopla, but that team just does not do it for me. Now, they could get hot. but I wouldn't bank anything on it. Them and Duke are dumpster fires this year compared to what we're normally used to seeing. Kansas and Carolina aren't what they normally were, but Carolina is dangerous because Carolina has the bigs to get to the Elite Eight.
Right.
Their guard play is shaky. They have 4 bigs that no one else in the country can combat. They have 4 McDonald's All-Americans as bigs, and they all can play. The issue is their guards are young and they're inexperienced and they turn the ball over too much. If they don't turn the ball over and teams don't get out and run and make them have to play smaller, which defeats their big guys, there'll be a nightmare matchup. If they can slow the game down against anyone, they'll be a dangerous team. Them, and of course, you got to look at Michigan State just because of the Izzo factor. They haven't looked great, but that team is dangerous. So it all depends on where you get put, what brackets you get put in matchups. Alabama will hopefully get put into some situations where the teams they play, they match up well with.
Yeah.
You know, matchups decide this tournament. That's the thing. It's not about who the better team is, because Gonzaga is by far and away the best team in college basketball, I'd say. I think when I look at it on paper and what I've seen right now, and I know they play in the West Coast Conference, but even when they haven't, they've embarrassed teams outside the West Coast Conference. They've beaten teams really bad. They beat Virginia really bad. They ran Kansas out the gym. Those are 2 Power 5 teams that are really good, and they ran them off the floor earlier in the season. And they would have played Baylor, but then the virus kicked in. They didn't get to play the 1 versus 2.
Right.
I wanted to see that early in the year to see. Now, I think Illinois could make a run. They have everything you need: a big guy in Coburn, guard play, a Player of the Year candidate in Desomu. Michigan is good. Michigan struggles to score, I've noticed, against better teams. They have a hard time scoring the ball against teams that can control their size. Like I've watched them the last couple of games. Michigan State today. Illinois earlier in the week, they banged them. They got physical with it, and Michigan didn't react as well as they normally do when they bully others. So Baylor, Gonzaga would be my picks to win it all. A sleeper would have been not a sleeper, but now that Gillespie's gone, I don't trust Villanova, because now I think Justin, the guard, he also hurt himself too yesterday with an ankle sprain. He might be out for a while. So Villanova, you can kind of erase them. They can't win it without Gillespie. That's how they've won their last 2, with Brunson and Arcidiacono holding the point guard position and everybody else filling in around them. That's where they were better than everyone. Point guard and guards, where they beat everybody. So when you look at it, though, guard play determines this tournament year in and year out. Every year, the team which gets the best guard play wins it all. You look at it from year to year, every year. And I think when you look at Alabama's guards, they have enough guards to play with anyone. The issue is will they live and die with the 3, which Oats said they don't, but they do shoot a lot of them, and they need to make about 36 to 37% of those. If they do, Alabama is a Final 8, Final 4 team. They can play with anyone. They have to make shots.
Yep.
If they're making shots, then they can defend. If they're not making shots, they kind of lose interest, and they become a team that kind of matador defense like, and they're good on defense, but they have to make shots.
Yeah. Look,
they have to make shots.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of touched on a couple things that I've seen too, and let me thank Witchmaster for the super chat. Roll damn Tide, man. I appreciate it. It's great to talk basketball, knowing that we're going to the tournament, and we appreciate the super chats a lot. Thanks for being here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel on a Sunday night. Thumbs up, guys. Subscribe as you hang out. 50,000 subscribers. We are so proud of that, and I guess we got our sights focused on 100,000. That's the next big goal, right? So thank all you guys for being here. But here's a couple things, and we'll sound off on this, okay? Alabama's got to make shots. Right? Alabama's got to make shots. Alabama plays great defense. The good thing about not making shots is that if you play good defense, we saw it against Mississippi State the night that they wrapped up the SEC championship, you can still win a basketball game. And these guys, Nate Oates said, hey, look, this is the best defensive basketball team I've ever been around. And I think that's awesome. And it's motivating because we know that these guys live and die by the 3, right? I mean, it's like an NBA team. I mean, they're going to go down the floor. You got to have the right personnel to run this type of offense. Guys, everybody's got to be able to shoot and not be afraid to pull the trigger. He's got that. Nights when they hit. Sometimes it doesn't happen, right? The thing that I want to see with this team, is somebody give me a buzzer beater. Maybe in Nashville. I want someone to give me a buzzer beater if it comes down to it, not be afraid, and just get that confidence, because that's the thing about this team that really worries me. You know, you talk about the games that they've lost. There've been a lot of close games, and I felt like when it came down to the last minute or so, you know, they
didn't know who to go to.
Yeah,
They didn't
came
know who
all
their
the way
main.
back.
They didn't know who their go-to guy was.
22 points down to
I agree with
Missouri.
that.
They come all the way back. Like, who wants to be the guy? Who wants to be the guy to make the shot? You know, everybody can shoot. Yeah, but you know what? That is the spot in the game where you got to have the guy that's ready to be that person, right? If they find that person now, this team could put it all together and make a run. And what I love about this year is, if Gonzaga is the best team in the country, if they're number one, then this tournament is wide open.
I agree. It's a wide open tournament. You would have to say going in, Baylor and Gonzaga have been the two best teams in America all year. You know, we're not going to knock that. The Big 12 has been the best conference, them in the Big 10. And Gonzaga, even though they're in the West Coast Conference, they have shown that they can step out and blow out good teams from other conferences. Like I stated, Kansas, Virginia, those games weren't even close. You know, they ran them off the floor. I'm just of the mindset that, like you said, when you get into this, it's about matchups. It's like fights. Styles make fights. You get in here and you get a team that has a lot of freshmen and sophomores against a mid-major with 5 or 6 seniors. That's a tough matchup for that young team. That's tough because those mid-majors, they have nothing to lose. No one predicted them to get here. And guess what they do? They come out and they play. And they play. And they play at a level that makes you go, wow. Wow. You know, so I'm of the mindset Gonzaga is the favorite, but anyone can win this thing. It's wide open. Wide open. So I would just like to see Gonzaga maybe, you know, of course, Alabama, I want them to win it. But if Gonzaga won it, I'd be excited because that would really take the mid-major thing. Even though they don't count them as one, they still are one based on the conference they're in.
Yeah.
They're not in the Power 5 conference. So can you imagine if they did pull it off? You know what I mean? It would be huge because that's what's missing. A team that, you know, has been built over the last, 20 years into a national power. Started with the Richie Fromm and KC Calvary team from 99 that lost in the Elite Eight to Richard Hamilton in Connecticut. And it's been going on since then. They've been in the championship game, lost to Carolina a couple of years ago, late in the game. They've been there. They've been close. They just didn't pull it off. And when I watch them, I go, this team has it all, man. They have everything it takes.
Yeah, right.
Like you said, it's gonna take, it's gonna take them figuring it out. It's gonna take them. They're gonna have to figure out and deal with everyone that is gonna be gunning for them. They're gonna be the favorite, but they're also gonna be the hunted,
right?
Because they've been considered the hunter. They've been the hunters for so long. Now they're gonna be the hunted.
Yep.
It's totally different when you're the hunted versus the hunter. So we'll see how that plays out. But I do believe in the end that they are the type of team that can just run through everyone. I just like what I see from them. They have so much that they can do. So much that they can do.
A lot of depth. Well, thanks for the call, man. Roll Tide, and
okay,
let's do it again next Sunday.
Thanks, man. Definitely. Have a good one, okay?
You too. Great call there. Love it. Love it when we get that call from DC. Let's go right back to the phone lines again. And for all of you that are hanging out on a Sunday night, thumbs up, subscribe. This is Bama Insider, the Alabama Rivals site. I'm Mick Gillispie as we talk Alabama basketball. We can talk some football, maybe who the greatest Alabama quarterback of all time is. Because Smitty and Waddle say their best quarterback was Mac Jones, not Tua, which kind of surprised some people. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Chad from Nash Vegas. What's up, man?
Going on? Music City on a Sunday night. Nick, how are you?
Good. Look good. And I mean, I know you're a huge Alabama basketball fan. So, I mean, this is like Christmas because we don't normally talk a lot of Alabama basketball.
Well, we haven't in the last decade. That's for sure. Oh, yeah, not normally, but this is fun, and I got lucky. I'm a Preds season ticket holder, so I actually got the opportunity to buy tickets for the tournament. So I get to be there Friday. One of the few. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, talk about let's go back to and look, guys. I mean, I got to be honest with you. Chad's one of my buddies. I'm throwing this up here for you, Chad, and I'm gonna put it up. There he is, Chuck. Let's talk about the run that Alabama had when they made it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, that was fun. I got to be there. Myself and Ben George actually called the game on the student radio station, old 90.7 back in the day. And you know what was weird about that tournament?
Did you say Paul George,
it
the
was a great
basketball
run.
player? No, I'm just kidding.
What?
What
was fun about that tournament, and I think what a lot of people forget, Alabama played Southern Illinois in that first game in that 8-9 matchup, and Bama didn't win that game like running away. That came down to the wire. And so Bama was just as close to being eliminated in the first week or the first day, and they were one of the early games. So they were like on the verge of being one of the first teams bounced from the tournament altogether.
65-64, Chad.
To the Elite Eight.
Yeah, sorry, 65-64. Yeah. How many times did the lead change at the end of that game?
I couldn't even tell you.
But it was back and forth.
Coming down to the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it coming down to the very end. I want to say Petway may have hit a shot in the paint towards the end of that one as well. But the Stanford game was crazy because it was the typical Alabama got behind 10, 12 points, and it was one of those spurts under Gottfried where they just went completely cold and dry for 5 or 6 minutes. And then they turned it on in the back half of the second half, and it made the run, and then Josh Childress fouled out. I'll never forget the name of the guy who took the game-winning shot for Stanford and bricked it, Dan Grunfeld.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, who do you give it to? Who do you give it to? And they end up with Dan Grunfeld, of all people, taking the shot to for the win or the tie to go to overtime in that one. But that Bama team that played Syracuse was lights out that night. But the UConn matchup, man, that team was just loaded.
They won it, right? Didn't they win the championship?
Yeah, they won it all. They beat Georgia Tech in the national championship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They beat Duke in the Final Four, and then Georgia Tech in the Natty. Georgia Tech played Oklahoma State. That was Eddie Sutton's team in the Final Four. But that was that not Georgetown. That UConn team was loaded, man. Okafor, Ben Gordon, Rashad Anderson, Josh Boone, and I'm forgetting the one other player in their starting five. But it was crazy how good they were. They were just unbeatable.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this year's team because, look, that was like an 8 seed. So that was just a hot team going into the tournament, and they caught lightning in a bottle. They were on borrowed time after they won in the first round, and they just kept rolling it out. This is legitimately one of Alabama's best teams. I mean, I've said this before. I'm not sure how good Alabama is or if the SEC just isn't that good, right? Arkansas is good. They're good. They've got over 20 wins. They're hot right now. I'm not taking anything away from them. I think Tennessee can be good. They're inconsistent, but they got players. I like Rick Barnes a lot there. Alabama, I don't know why, but they have just destroyed LSU. And LSU, I've watched on other nights. They're not a bad team. They're going to make the tournament, I'm guessing. I mean, they're one of the top teams. And Missouri, Alabama lost to Missouri on the road, but outside of those teams, no one's really that good. I mean, I could see Kentucky winning the SEC tournament, making the NCAAs. I don't know. I mean, convince me that the SEC is better than I feel like. And my whole point is, you can't I'm not going to sit here and put down a 16-2 regular season. I mean, a conference season. I mean, that's amazing. But what I'm saying is this, with the COVID and everything else, could be a really, really weak SEC.
I think you're right. Honestly, I think you're spot on there. If you look at the SEC, I think from a perception standpoint, they were a whole lot better in the first half of the conference schedule. And you had Bama, you had Tennessee, you had Missouri, LSU was ranked for a while. Arkansas just surged in the second half of the conference schedule. So I think you're right. I think the conference as a whole has been trending a little in the wrong direction in the last 3 to 4 weeks. Doesn't mean there aren't good teams. There are plenty of good teams there. But are they really good teams, like teams that should be a 3 and a 4, maybe a 5 seed? Like, I don't know how many you really get into with that in the SEC and the conference. So if I'm Alabama, I'm extremely nervous that Friday you're going to play a Kentucky team, most likely. I mean, I'm assuming Kentucky beats Mississippi State. So on Friday, you got to play the Cats in your first tournament game.
Right.
Cats have their back against the wall.
Yeah.
Nothing to lose. The only way they get in is by going through you. The Cats know that this year's SEC is down. What's waiting on them on the other side is either Florida or Tennessee. They could beat either one of those teams. And then a championship. So I think Bama gets Kentucky in a bad spot. And on top of that, you got to beat Kentucky 3 times in 1 year.
Yeah.
That's a tall order. I don't care
awesome,
what
though.
Kentucky team it is. It's just a tall order.
Yeah.
So I don't, that's like saying you got to beat Alabama football 3 times in a year in the Shula days. Like, it's still not easy to beat the name on that jersey 3 times in one season.
No.
So
hey, look, Coach
that's
Cal's
what makes
good.
me nervous.
Chad.
I mean, the Tide's in; it's a 2 seed, but
Right.
still nervous about the tournament.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they win the SEC, I think there's a chance that they're a 1, just because there's so many of those Big Ten teams that are slightly ahead of them, but they're going to lose, right? So you run through the conference regular season like they did, and then if you figure out a way to run through the tournament. I think that there's a good chance. They're going to want to spread those number 1 seeds out, different conferences. And I could see Alabama being a number 1 seed. I mean, that might need a little bit of help. Gonzaga's going to get 1. Whoever wins the Big Ten is going to get 1. Baylor could possibly get 1. I mean, they haven't lost much. And then maybe Alabama. I don't know. But they're pretty much set at a 2, which would be the 3rd time ever that Alabama's had a number 2 seed going into the tournament. But yeah, I mean, like, I feel the same way that you do about Kentucky. I mean, Coach Cal recruits talent. He didn't have a chance to work with a lot of young players because of COVID and everything else. Alabama's beaten them twice, actually tore their heads off down there at Rupp Arena. I didn't like the way Alabama played against Kentucky and Tuscaloosa. They won the basketball game, but I felt like Kentucky had the better players. I mean, when you just kind of watch like the talent level, you're going, okay, yeah, it was like, I just felt like Kentucky was just not hitting on any cylinders, but could. And honestly, Kentucky's been like that all year. But then all of a sudden, I mean, they just dismantled South Carolina. They're the perfect team to come into the SEC tournament, run off enough wins to make the to make the NCAA. And I mean, no Auburn this year. This is their self-imposed ban year. so they didn't play in the tournament.
They suck this year anyway. It worked out well that they're self-imposed ban year. They're not very good.
I just love it. We're not going to be able to make the tournament, like the NCAA tournament, so we're just going to stay at home. Yeah. Okay, War Eagle.
Yeah. You already knew it. Yeah, War Eagle anyway. So, but yeah, I do agree with it. One thing too, I mean, you're a Bama grad. I want Bama to do so well. But when I look at the team, though, and Nate Oats has said it, is that he's very happy with the way the defense is playing right now. But he's admitted it. He said we got to find something on offense. Now, second half of Georgia, they made a ton of shots. They scored a ton of points. What did they score? 59 in
Yeah.
the second half against Georgia.
Hey, look, how fast did they erase that deficit at halftime? I mean, like, it just was like, okay, I think they might be bored a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder the same if they're looking for because they've been on cruise control. What's interesting about the Bama team is they can look mediocre, but then they find a way to win.
Right.
And that's all that matters. But they find ways to win, and in the past they wouldn't. They would lose those games. So I'm interested to see, like you said, all right, all the chips are on the table. This is it. It's tournament time. What performance comes out? And Oats said it after the game Saturday. He's like, halftime, I just said, hey, why don't we make some shots? That's all he said. Was like, hey, maybe we should just make some shots.
Right.
And they started going in. So this team is so dangerous. They're so good. They've gelled. They're completely different from November. They're really, really dangerous if they get hot. But they cannot afford, when you get into the tournament and you start playing good team every other day, you can't get into a spot where you have to claw your way back from 15 down.
Right.
And you can't do that.
Yeah.
So I just want to see the offensive team that came out in the first half of the conference season. Second half of the season, they still put up big points in a few games, but something's missing. It's just not there the way it was before. But man, they're dangerous. They could easily make a run. I don't think they're going to get a 1 seed even if they went out, but I think it's a 2. But they're still so dangerous.
So you don't think if they went out, you don't think they'd be a number 1 seed if they won out?
I don't. I think Gonzaga, Baylor are your 1-2 no matter what happens. I think you would need Michigan or Illinois to lose early. I know Michigan lost today, but I think you need Michigan or Illinois to lose kind of early in the Big Ten. And you also don't need Ohio State to come in from behind and win the tournament, because that could leapfrog potentially. But I don't know. There's a valid argument either way. But whether you're the 4th number 1 seed or the 1st number 2 seed, not much difference either way.
We're talking Alabama basketball as you hang out with us on a Sunday night here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel, part of Alabama's Rivals site. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe as you hang out. Alabama basketball right now rolling. And we're talking about the SEC tournament. That starts this week. Alabama, if they win the tournament, I'm saying, although Chad is disagreeing with me, I say that if Alabama wins the tournament, they're number 1, but he's skeptical. I mean, look, but they win the SEC tournament. I mean, there's so many of those Big Ten teams. They're going to want to, I don't know. It always gets political. We'll see. I think Alabama have maybe a 50-50 shot.
What's more impressive, though, a Big Ten tournament title or an SEC tournament title right now?
Yeah.
So who are you going to beat to go? Kentucky, who nobody respects right now.
I got
then
you.
Tennessee or Florida, and then
do you think there's
Arkansas, that'd be your best win.
The Alabama plays Friday morning at 11 a.m. and you say you're going to be there. You got ticks. In Nashville, this team's like not good in the morning. I mean, do you think that follows through? It's like another strike against them. I feel like Kentucky's going to be there. I watched Kentucky lose to Mississippi State. That'd blow this whole conversation. But let's just for giggles, right? Let's just say that they're there, and they're going to have all their fans, and Nashville's got a ton of Wildcat basketball fans. You'll be there pulling for Alabama. 11 a.m. This team has not played that well at 11 a.m. They're better at night. Kentucky's going to be that team that's going to try to steal a spot in the tournament with more talent than any other team in the SEC, even though they've been horrible this year. Do you think that affects Alabama at all? I mean, playing at 11 a.m., or do you think that's just kind of the way that things have broke out so far?
I think the fact that Kentucky plays Mississippi State early on Thursday is going to help Kentucky, honestly. They kind of get into a little bit of a groove. Like, it won't be the first time. I mean, these guys are used to getting up, though, and playing on Saturdays at 11 a.m. or noon. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, personally. I think where the advantage for Alabama is going to come into play, the one COVID advantage, is normally in Nashville, it's 80% Kentucky. Even when South Carolina's playing Mississippi State on a Thursday at noon, there's 80% Kentucky fans in the building.
Yep, I've been there.
So I've been there, done that.
I've seen it.
So I actually think, I think that the crowd situation in 3,500 is going to help Alabama tremendously, because it's just not going to be much of an impact on the game.
We're talking with Chad. He's from Nashville, getting into Alabama basketball on a Sunday night. Chad, you were at the Elite Eight. You were at all the games that year, 03, 04, Alabama. I loved watching Chuck Davis. Alabama had a go-to guy. I mean, look, Kennedy Winston was good. Reggie Rambo was good. Love Ernest Shelton, Lucky Williams. There were some good players on that team. Everyone, Antoine Petway, still at Alabama, awesome guy, great player. But look, the go-to guy on that team when they needed somebody to make a big shot was Chuck Davis. You were running around with a headband on because you like Chuck Davis so much. Who's the Chuck Davis on this team?
I mean, it's got to be Petty, right? I mean, Petty's just so dangerous on both sides. As far as when I say that, I mean, he can spot up and drill the three. He can create separation and hit the three. He can elevate and hit the three. But then Petty does a great job of driving and creating around the block as well if he needs to. Watch him sometimes, and people get surprised by it, but he's actually very good at driving in and creating. So I think Petty has got to be, but I would say Shackelford's a close second. I mean, who's really a better shooter, Petty or Shaq? Because, man, they can both drill it. So I don't know. I would probably give it to Petty, but if it ended up with Shaq, I wouldn't be upset.
Let me pop that on there for you, Chad. There it is. You see that? There it is.
I don't.
The headband. That's the headband. I just put Chuck up on the screen with the head. He's got not the white headband. He's got the crimson headband on.
Yeah, there it is. See, I didn't need the headband as much back then. It was more for show because I had more hair. But today, man, I need the headband and need the whole cap. Yeah, right. I need it all.
Well, we were talking earlier before you got on here, and I said this, I love the fact that Alabama plays defense, because defense doesn't take a game off. Sometimes you have trouble shooting and scoring, but with defense, you can play defense. It's all effort, right? They play great defense. They're one of the top 3 in the country playing defense, defensive efficiency, or however they figure that out. This is a great defensive team. When they shoot the 3, they'll blow you right out of the building. But they don't always do that, so they miss a lot of shots too. They take a ton, they miss some, they make some. They're in it. I worry about this team finding that guy who's going to take the shot at the end of the game. The Chuck. They need the Chuck Davis on this team. The guy that's going to tip the ball back. Give me the ball and let me put it through the hoop. Do you really think that Shackelford's that guy? Is Petty that guy? Because in the games that they've lost, it just feels like when it's come to the end of the game, no one wants to be the guy to shoot the ball.
I would still say that those two. I mean, Quinterly, too, is so good at driving and creating, and so quick. I mean, he's not Kyra Lewis, who, by the way, was 17 when he played at Alabama, if you didn't know that.
I know, crazy. Right?
But,
hey, look, he should have been on this team right now.
Yeah, that's true, and that would make this team even more dangerous.
He's the guy. Really,
national media would always bring up he's 17.
But let's hold that though, right there. He's the guy that's missing. That's why it's so hard to put together great college basketball teams. Can you imagine having Lewis with this group? Now you got the guy who wants to take the big shot, right? The ball's his.
Or he could at least create.
Or he could create.
He was the best creator.
Right.
Yeah. But no, if it's just from a pure shooting standpoint, then it's Shaq or Petty all day, either order. But Quinterly's no slouch, man. Can get to the rim quickly, very elusive, just able to create inside the paint and put up some crazy shots. But I mean, again, he's not Kyra Lewis, but That's a pretty nice transfer that Alabama was fortunate to get from Villanova.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Alabama getting ready for the SEC tournament. That guy there, Nate Oats, going to help out, doing his thing. All right, Chad, before I let you go, I've got to get you to dip into this other conversation before we bid everyone farewell. I'm throwing Tua onto the screen right now because
it's a quarterback question.
It's a quarterback question, man. I mean, like, and I've posed this out. Greatest quarterback of all time at Alabama. You can go back to Bart Starr. You could take Snake Stabler. You could take Broadway Joe. I don't care. Whoever, right? And the reason why, if you didn't see it, first Devontae Smith and now Jalen Waddle have come out and said that, even though they love Tua, that Mac Jones is a better quarterback.
Well, I mean, if you throw durability in there and count that, then he is. Mac only had one season. I mean, not that Tua had a bad season. Technically, Tua had more weapons because he had Ruggs and Judy to go along with Waddle and Smith. So the argument can be made, man. There's no doubt. If you want to give it to Mac, I got no problem with it. In fact, I would probably give it to Mac. Just the way and as dominating as that offense was with him, it's just insane. Just absolutely insane. And Tua had more weapons, technically. And Mac still had a better offense and won a national championship.
Yeah.
One guy I don't want to overlook because I think he's right there in the conversation, and I think he should be, is A.J. McCarron. I don't think that guy gets a lot of credit that he should, in my opinion. Because he was in that older style offense, more the pro style, and look at what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, he won a national title in 11.
Yep.
With the only loss was a game of the century, and they got revenge on that one, and that was a fluky game. They won in 2012 national championship, lost to Manziel, but still won. 2013, I actually think that was the best team, and they didn't win it all because of the kick six, but they were undefeated to that point.
Right.
And they would have won the national title. They would have beat Florida State, I think, that year in the Rose Bowl.
Right.
So to me, you can't overlook McCarron only because he did it and did it for 3 years. And I know it was a different offense, and he still could have won 3 straight national championships. So I think McCarron should be in the conversation, but even though it's recent, it's hard to say Mac Jones isn't number one.
Hey, look, and you're in Nashville, and if I don't throw this guy's name in there, it's definitely one of my good buddies. He might kill me, right? No, he wouldn't. But Jay Barker, man. Look at Jay Barker's record when he was at Alabama.
I know, but that's kind of like, look,
it's a different era of football,
Barker.
but
Barker was fantastic.
Jay was great, man.
But
competitor.
But it was 30 years ago.
Well, I know.
And Stallings was winning games 13-6.
Well, it's the same thing.
That's how they won.
It's right. It's the same thing when you talk about the quarterbacks from Bear Bryant's era and before. Bart Starr was before Bear Bryant, and then Snake Stabler and Joe Namath. I mean, think about it. Like, they're two of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL ever. But we're talking about now. So
I think Barker was 32-1-1 as a starter.
It was crazy,
something like that.
Yeah, he didn't lose
at
much.
Alabama, but the difference to me is that it's kind of like evaluating pitchers in Major League Baseball. To me, just because a pitcher wins a game, they had to put themselves in position to win, but the win column isn't indicative to me of how good a starting pitcher is in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Same thing with quarterbacks. People say, I love Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts went to a system that worked for him in a bad conference, and a lot of people could have been successful at Oklahoma.
Right.
So I just don't like to throw out look at how many games they won. That doesn't mean much.
Well, listen, if you talk about an individual season, and I think that the offensive line is really the greatest of all time, and that's a big factor for all these guys, not just Mac Jones, but, Najee running behind it, Smitty and Waddle and Billingsley and, the rest of the guys catching passes and Mac Jones throwing behind it. But look, I mean, in a season, I don't know that there's ever been a better season for a quarterback at Alabama than the one Mac had. I'm just trying to figure out when.
To me, that's a different question. If you want to talk about seasons or teams, I think this Alabama team was the best ever.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean,
the offense was so good that it overlapped any weakness from the defense. And the defense wasn't weak. I'm just saying the defense wasn't the same as the 92 defense. But I'm saying this Bama team was the best.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything like that.
I loved it. I mean, like in a year where we didn't even know if we were going to have football, to have this type of season, it was so great. Well, Chad, man, thanks.
Well, they left no doubt.
No. I mean, no. And I'll tell you the other part of it too. Can I play you a clip before? I was about to let you off, and close up shop. But I want to play you a clip first because let me just play this for you. Okay, you ready? This is why
I'm ready.
I enjoyed the season so much. You really love this guy, and there's a lot going on at his school right now.
Right in the middle of the field. Everybody. Hey, we've been waiting for this moment, man. Let's go. Right here in the middle of the damn field. Let's bring it down. Tigers on 3. Hell yeah. Because this is our house from now on. Yes, sir. Tigers on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Well, hey, can somebody post a clown emoji? I mean, come on, man.
That was the biggest one-year lightning in a bottle that may ever exist in college football, because what's come out now recently with Miles and the sexual allegations and all this stuff. I mean, it's just the only word to describe that whole athletic department is train wreck. It is just a debacle.
Yep.
What goes on there?
Look,
it's insane.
They haven't even gotten into the newer allegations. I mean, some reason they have to release all this stuff. This is going back to Les Miles. I guess now we know why people wanted him fired every year. It was so Auburnish, right? Like they'd win 9 games, have a pretty good season, and people wanted him out, and then somehow he'd survive. And I guess we know now that there were some creepy things going on, behind the scenes. Thank you, Jersey.
I like to give people the benefit of the doubt if I can, but it's definitely not looking good for Miles and for LSU.
Yeah. So I mean, like that whole scenario is I don't know, man. I just hate it. I hate it for the students that have to go through that stuff. And look, and let me tell you this. Alabama's got its own skeletons too. So, a lot of this stuff goes on.
All schools do.
A lot of this stuff goes on. And these administrators, I've been critical of Bill Battle. Not going to get into why right now. But people like him, they got names on buildings and stuff. And then when you go through and it comes out, you're like, hey, wait a second. That's all I'm going to say. So, you know what? I mean, this is, but it's all coming out down there. And a lot of this, what happens is that if somebody is brave enough or there's money involved, it could be one or two things. But who wants to come out and say that, that they were, a student worker or whatever, and the head coach is like trying to call their house and trying to get them to come to a meeting and using secret code names and like when he texts and stuff. I mean, it's just some creepy people, and LSU is a lot of trouble. And the reason I played that, as I bid you guys farewell here shortly, is because that's what made this thing the cherry on the top. Because LSU had a great season last year, and this guy comes to Tuscaloosa. They get by the skin of their teeth. They beat Alabama. He stands on the middle of the field and he's screaming like a banshee out there that, this
He's a
is our
mascot.
house.
He's
He goes
just a mascot.
he goes, exactly. He's like a mascot. He goes into the locker room, and you saw that video. Kyle won't let me play it on here. And then Alabama comes out, stomps them, and takes their perfect season and just throws another championship on the log of championships in the fire that is Alabama.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, I mean, it couldn't have played out any better.
yeah. Well, look, brother, thanks for calling in, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Talk to you later, man.
All right, roll tide, my friend. And I think that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Talked a lot of basketball tonight. Alabama rolling towards the SEC tournament. They play Friday against the winner of Kentucky and Mississippi State. That's an 11 o'clock game. And I think if Alabama wins the tournament, I think they're going to be a number one seed. Chad kind of disagreed. There's the teams ahead of them. A lot of them are in the Big Ten, and they're going to lose because they're playing in a tournament. Michigan just lost, and so you got these other teams coming in, and some things are going to happen here as we start to get kind of moving towards the end of this this season. So excited about what Alabama's doing basketball wise. And you guys can go back. I see that you just checked in, David. You missed the chat. Hey, look, go back. I'm about to, as soon as I drop this thing in YouTube, you can go back and watch it from the beginning. We talk a lot about Alabama basketball history. Going back to Chad was at the Elite Eight when Alabama had their best run. We talked about Wimp Sanderson and what he did at Alabama. This guy was in the tournament every year. Alabama's heyday of basketball right now is, 80s. He was there every single year, winning the tournament, winning the regular season. And that type of success in Tuscaloosa really hasn't been seen. So that's what Nate Oats is going to try to deliver. And, part of it, the facility's got to get better at Alabama. Now that they got the coach, they got him paid. He'll be around for a while. And they're getting the recruits. J.D. Davidson's going to be there. Hey, it's going to be a lot of fun seeing what this team does. But anyway, look, next game for them is on Thursday. Check that. That's on Friday at 11 a.m. They'll play probably Kentucky, and that'll be a tough game. And if they beat Kentucky 3 times in 1 year in basketball, it might never happen again in Alabama history. Just that they might not even play that much. But, all right, guys, look, we got a lot of great stuff coming up for you here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. You got tomorrow at 6 o'clock, Monday Night Quarterback. That's when I will hang out with Tony Tsoukalos and Trey Yannity. Tuesday, you got Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone. And we'll be filling you in on everything that's going on, recruiting-wise, football-wise, and, of course, getting you ready for the SEC basketball tournament. Hey, look, women's basketball eliminated in their tournament, and I think it was in South Carolina, but it looks like they're going to make the NCAA tournament, and they could be as high as a 6th seed. Some of the bracketology that I've seen, they haven't been to the basketball tournament in like 20 some years. So that'd be good to see Alabama women get in there. The baseball team's ranked, and softball, both of them are playing some pretty good ball right now. So a lot of things for Alabama fans to be involved in. As we kind of sit in this time where, football, we're waiting on the spring practice to get going and the 8A game to be played. So subscribe, like, thanks for watching, guys. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Roll Tide, everybody.